Hi Noel, hope you're well. So the initial idea of making this presentation was to discuss at length my research proposal and its future trajectories. I had almost finished making this presentation when I got your mail saying that you have gone through my August 2017 proposal and gave me your suggestions. Given this, I will not discuss some of the presentation's parts and try and move to the ones that I think I should highlight in this video. The picture on the title page is a project done by Andreas Dorney of DZP. Is a new reference for me, and I'm developing a liking for his agrarian urbanism. Next is what is it that I'm trying to do? My research is exploring how economy and sustainability are related to the built environment. For this, its starting point is critique of capitalism as a system of economy having adverse environmental and social impacts, and how can we move beyond capitalism to envision a built environment which is economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable. I will briefly discuss these contents that have stirred me to take up this research. I will talk about my personal experiences, important courses that I did at EVDS, emergent research questions, methodology, and research challenges. So, a religious holiday in a small town in Pakistan 4 decades ago meant no transport on the roads. And as my mother was due, and given the transport situation in the town, I was born at home on such religious holiday announced by this famous Eliasi mosque in Ahmedabad. I wonder what would have happened to me if my mother had grown significantly dependent on technology and not being able to go to a hospital. This raised serious questions in my mind later as to the vulnerability of life, where so much depends on technology and where so many human functions are now relegated to machines. Abbottabad back in the day was a small, beautiful valley 4,000 feet above sea level. However, our family always had to move to larger cities because work was somewhat predictably available to my father there. This caused anguish in his behavior as he was a person tied to his land. Also, Abbottabad had also started to lose its natural features under population growth and urbanization. So he was not sure if the town he came from was the same place he knew as a child. I wondered if it was possible for people to be able to live on their ancestral lands that never changed in their chief characters and always provided continued subsistence. My father then eventually settled in a large megapolis, which now has a population of 17 million and more. Work is predictably available, but only at a cost of serious compromises like little or no family life, peace of mind, living in a sprawling city with degrading urban conditions, and so on. So, given these experiences, I started to raise some basic questions like why do people feel connected to their context? What can be done so that they do not have to migrate? How can a geographical context be used by its inhabitants so that they and the land become one instead of men becoming master of nature? Is it possible for a human habitat to be insusceptible to life disruptions caused by power breakdowns, infrastructure shortcomings or failures, heavy imports of services and products, and economic recessions? And how can a geographical location provide basic necessities and employment to its human settlers without compromising on its natural features and regional identity? And does a geographical location determine the kind of lifestyle and habitat its settlers should have? Next is my directed study at EVDS in 2016. Here I came across the disturbing facts as to the environmental health of our planet. Like there is a strong evidence that climate change is human caused, that we have exceeded 3 out of 9 crucial planetary boundaries, that mass production and consumption is the order of the day, that has taken a fatal toll on our planet. I also learned some of the remedies to this calamitous state of affairs, like downscaling economies and adopting sustainable ways of personal, social, and economic living. So many questions emerged from this course, like what are the environmental and social implications of mass production and mass industrialization on human habitat? Can genuine human needs be determined for the people of a given locale? If yes, what kind of built environment would result if a given geographical location is used for satisfaction of human needs as discussed above? And if energy consumption and the usage of fossil fuels is significantly low in the pre-industrial societies, will it be fruitful to look at them for their system of economy, lifestyles, and the resultant environment? And what would it mean for an economy to be downscaled? What measures are needed? And is our lifestyle and built environment one of these measures? And what is the nature of employment in this built environment? Will such a human habitat be environmentally and socially sustainable and develop a respectable relationship of humans with their natural surround? This picture on the screen is intensive urban agriculture in Cuba that I came across in another interesting course that influenced my research. This course was titled People and Place. There were many wow moments here, like the resilience of Cuba after the disintegration of the Soviet Russia, protection of the hinterlands and the surrounding landscape by the city of Portland, sustainable urban living in Coruscant. This is not to mention books by Bill McKibben and David Abram. So, the one main question that emerges from this course is that if Cuba was able to sufficiently sustain its economy and provide for its people's needs in severe political and economic crisis by completely relying on its local production and services, is the same possible for other inhabited geographies as well? Up next is environmental impact assessment conducted by Professor Marco. This course has been another eye-opener as it discussed many disturbing facts, one of which is that the irreversibility of impacts caused by various projects. And the image on the screen is one mild example of these irreversible impacts. What is important to note also is that an approved project is not liable for any cumulative and residual impacts that it causes. And the story does not end here. Every time a project is approved with some allowable adverse impacts, it disturbs the environmental conditions that then become the existing baseline data for the next project to follow, meaning the original condition of the environment is not taken as the point of reference when measuring the impacts of the new proposed project, but it is the baseline data available after the residual impacts of the previous projects. Also, in Canadian environmental impact assessment, social impacts are not considered and measured, and that economic interests override all other environmental concerns for human well-being. So, the one main question that emerges from this course has many themes. Um, can there be a project with no adverse social and environmental impacts? what does a project with no adverse social and environmental impacts look like? And can there be a project with only healthy social and environmental impacts? And what would this project look like? And is a built environment itself a project of life that sustainably sits on and blends with a given geography? The next section is of this presentation deals with grouping of research questions that I have raised before in such a manner that some research themes become identifiable. So on the left hand side is the questions that I talked about previously, and on the right are the themes which, based on my questions, are impacts of industrialization on raw locale history as a point of reference for future lifestyles and built environments, relationship of economy with a raw locale, sustainability, and the built environment. So, based on these themes, my desires or research objectives are many. The main ones being creating a built environment that allows people to live on their ancestral lands where regions, ecology, environment are respected and which sufficiently provides for all genuine human needs. Up next is how am I connecting all the dots? In other words, what is my possible research methodology to answer my research questions? So, before I go on to explain my research methodology, I would just like to quickly discuss methodology adopted by Tim Jackson for one of his articles titled Live Better by Consuming Less. What I liked about this is the multidisciplinary approach towards the topic, for instance, discussing many areas of knowledge ranging from social theory to English literature. So, following this, I started to map my own methodology based on the research background that I have given. I can categorize my research origination to basically two large areas, namely personal and academic. These revolve around my research title that you see in the center. In other words, you know, these two large areas can then be further broken down into psychological, social, and economic, and directed study, people and place, EIA, and past literature review. So basically, you can then categorize this breakdown into three areas, which are social psychological, professional economic, and natural and man-made environment. So following Tim Jackson, I then made my wheel of multidisciplinary approach that contained many areas that you see on the screen. Please note that the areas in the economic segment and the environmental segment are coming from Synergia Institute that you introduced me to, and an article titled Environmental Justice and the Conceptions of Green Economy. So, in an ideal world, this is how I would actually like to do my research, with the plan of writing journal papers along the way from every segment. But one recurrent issue with my working style is the lack of specificity. So, I thought maybe I can select key knowledge areas from this wheel that I have created so that the research is defined by conceptual boundaries and it becomes more focused. So based on this approach, I have made three models that have different knowledge areas selected from each segment of the wheel. However, all of these models have a common social segment, which is the study of capitalism and post-capitalism. So here is my first model. The idea is how do we conceive a post-capitalist built environment by generally looking at the history of city, doing selected historical case studies, serving a general commentary of built environment and combining all of these with a general description of economy, or which is good for the for people and the planet. The general components of this approach are capitalism and post-capitalism, green economy, commentary on built environment and history of city. The specific components are environmental history and case study of selected cities and their pre-industrial, urban, social, and economic conditions. The second model has its origins in the Letchworth report that you forwarded to me in 2016, I think. The wow moment for me while reading this report was that if housing could be attained at a much lower cost, as proposed by the report, then the only other problem would be growing your own food. And then we would have a perfectly sustainable built environment. So based on this, this model groups together economic study of cooperatives, CLTs, and agrarian urbanism. The other reason for this grouping is that CLTs, cooperatives, and agrarian urbanism all have their roots in the Garden City movement as envisaged by Ebenezer Howard. So basically, this model would be the study of Harvard's dream and its implementation in the 21st century Calgary. The third and the last model specifically focuses on two systems of economy, namely steady state and degrowth. These are then combined with economic activity of food systems to speculate a built environment. But at this moment, my inclination is towards the first and the second model. So the last topic in this presentation is research challenges. I think there are two types. One is academic and the other is management related. So the one academic challenge that keeps emerging in my is my divergent personality that naturally likes multiplicity. However, at this moment in time, defining the scope of and literature for my research and gaining focus is something that I'm struggling with. The other academic challenge is that I feel that there are many gaps in whatever research grounds that I have covered so far. I feel that there are many research boxes to be filled so that a desirable picture emerges. For instance, I feel that my study of sustainability needs a bit more of a reading. The general study of history of city requires exploration of work that has been done recently, like studying Spiro Kostoff, etc. It also requires coverage of seminal works done by people like Max Weber. And then there are distractions like applying for scholarships, writing abstracts for conferences, and making posters, etc. So doing a research is not always a straight line. On the management side, I would, I benefit a lot from personal meetings with the teachers of EVDS, which in my case are not happening owing to my location at this moment in time. Also, the different time zone and busy routine also is a factor in communication. So in the end, I would like to thank you for your valuable time and based on this presentation, I would like to talk to you about as to how to move forward and complete this research. Thank you very much and take care.